Hello, welcome to the West London Sport YouTube channel. I'm Dan Bennett. I'm joined today by West London Sport's Ian McCullough and Kevin Gallen to chat a bit about QPR. Hard-fought win yesterday. We're having this chat the day after the game against Cardiff, where QPR secured a 1-0 victory. Andre Gray's third goal for the club. Ian, you went all the way over there to Cardiff to watch well, you just said it wasn't exactly a thrilling game, but a win nonetheless. I mean, do you think we saw a side of QPR maybe we haven't seen enough this season?
Yeah, I mean, defensively they were pretty good yesterday, but I mean, I've said before, um, you know, Rangers they do match up quite well against these physical sides now. Millwall, Cardiff, Birmingham, these kinds of teams. Cardiff are very limited. They have with long throws and set pieces into the box, and I thought Jimmy Dunn probably had his best game since he signed. He was marking Keeper Moore, who's a good player, a real handful, and he matched up with him physically and kept him pretty quiet. Rob Dickie, was very good, bringing the ball out the fence, and they had a real barrage in the last 5 minutes. So I was sort of hanging on a little bit, but they dealt with it relatively comfortably. And I think it was a really good 3 points just to get back to winning ways. And it's so tight with the Championship as ever. I mean, I think after an hour on Tuesday, Middlesbrough's game at Luton, they were fifth. After 90 minutes, they're down to 15th. So I'm losing 3-1. It's so kind of, concertina there. Going into November, you're sitting there fifth, and another tough game on Saturday against Blackpool. But they're in a pretty good place in the minute, Rangers, I think.
Yeah, it bodes well, doesn't it? I mean, they've been pretty much around the playoff places for the whole season. Don't really think they've fallen too far out of it. Been in there pretty much the whole season up until now, which bodes really well. And like Ian said, Kev, it was a real big result, wasn't it? Because things haven't been going quite as well recently. They've not been going poorly. Obviously, let the late goal in against Forest, which was a big disappointment. And the late goals have really held the team back. We saw it at Peterborough as well. There's been a few kind of worrying signs lately, but I think yesterday's win really sort of, I guess, calmed the nerves among the QPR fans and really settled everything down a little bit.
Yeah, no, that was a good win. Not the greatest of games. Cardiff, home team, didn't really do much. I don't know what they were doing, really. They were like just passing it along the back. Then they'd go long, and then, as Ian said, second half especially, just long balls in the long throws in the box, which with Jimmy Dunn and Barbe and Dickie, who are good size, dealt with it well. Defended well when they had to. Didn't really create much other than the great pass from Dessell for the goal, and took really well by Andre Gray. And then I think second half, Dickie Dykes had a decent chance when Austin knocked it down to him. So other than that, there wasn't really much going on. But look, at the end of the day, 3 points away from home. And as you just said, where the last few results hasn't really gone our way. The Peterborough, the Sunderland game, where obviously I didn't think we played well anyway, but we got a goal disallowed for absolutely a shocking decision.
I get started on that, Kev. You're here all day, mate.
I'm just going through, and then the late goal against Nottingham Forest, and when you sort of win in 1-0 at home and someone scores in the last minute, you sort of half, even though it's a point, but you sort of half come away like it's a defeat, and they come away with like QPR's been in that position where equalising the last minute, and you think it's a win. It's not. It's still a point. So thoroughly deserved. I think we were the better team, controlled the possession. And then roll on Saturday and have a tough game, and they all come thick and fast. And Ian just said it. The Championship is so tight. I think if anyone puts any sort of run together, even if you're in 15th, you win 3 games on the spin, and you're like in the playoff picture. So, and then you lose 3 games, and you're looking over your shoulder, and sort of don't want to be getting dragged into a relegation battle. So it's an important win for QPR, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not sure if this season is quite closer than others, but it definitely seems to be a lot closer than I remember. I mean, there's only about 2 points separating, I think, sort of bottom half and playoffs. It's so tight. Anyone could get in there, like you say. We've got quite a lot to get through today, but I mean, one of the things I wanted to come on to first is this kind of dilemma, I guess a good dilemma that Mark Warburton's got at the moment in midfield. Obviously, start of the season, a lot of injuries in that area. Luke Amos still recovering. Sam Field, who looks like he's on his way back now, was obviously out injured as well. And he had a real kind of limit of options, but that seems to be changing now. And I just wondered if I could come to you first, Kev, to kind of get your thoughts on what you think the best midfield is. I mean, I think would all be on the same page and say Stefan Johansson is an obvious choice. He's the captain, arguably QPR's best player. Not obviously he's maybe not as good as he was at the start of the season, but what would your kind of thinking be in that midfield?
I mean, Stefan Johansson, I didn't think he had a great game yesterday.
Yeah.
Very quiet. Dessell obviously played the ball of the game for the winner, a lovely ball where on his left foot, and he's got great technique, and he's got his head up and he can deliver that ball, so a fine ball. So it's a difficult one because, as you said, Field's coming back. You've still got Don Ball. Luke Amos is there. Then you've got Duke McKenna sort of, behind their shoulders trying to get in there. So a good dilemma, you're right. Who would I say? I mean, Stefan Johansson is the captain. It depends on who we're playing. I mean, if you're playing against a physical team, and the thing about last night, Cardiff, they have potential to be physical, but they weren't. I mean, if I was a Cardiff manager, I would have just went long ball the whole game and had a fight about it, but they were trying to knock it around the back. And then when we did have the ball, they all just stepped off, and which suited Dessell, and because he loves passing and getting it and moving it. And as you see with the fine pass he did for the goal, exquisite pass, he gets his head up and he threads that ball through because no one was on him, closing him down. But I think it's more of, horses for courses. I think Don Ball will come in when you may be playing a West Brom or Sandfield for physicality. When you're playing a team that's plays like a counter-attack, which Cardiff were trying to do, but I don't know what they were doing. But if you're playing like a counter-attack, a team who wants to sit back, then you need a couple more passes in your team, and that's where Johansson and Dessell could play together. So I don't think it's necessarily these are my main two. I think when they're all fit, the manager, Warburton, has got a decision to make where we're playing against a team who sit back. I need an extra pass in that team. So I'll take Don Ball out and I'll put Dessell in, or Sam Field. And then we're playing a more physical team. Don Ball, you come back in because we need you protecting that back four. So I think it's a more of a horses for courses situation that Mark Warburton's got.
Yeah, I mean, if Johansson is a definite for the team, which I think under Warburton he will be unless he's injured, I think he absolutely will be one of the first names on the team sheet. Does that create some problems for him though, Kev? Because there's, like you said, there's one, if in the system they play, there's basically and Johansson's even played on his own before. I'm not sure he'll do that a lot, but there's essentially one spot for quite a few players there. I mean, is that a good thing or a bad thing? I mean, I suppose there's two sides to it, isn't there?
I think you have to have I think the manager, I always believe that the manager should always have at least 8 or 9, 7, 8, 9, right, they're playing, and then, I can rotate a few. Maybe Johansson for the Blackpool game. I don't know how Blackpool play. Are they like a high tempo running team? He might say, Stefan, have a rest and play someone else, like a Don Ball with Dessell. That could happen. And maybe, he's played a lot of games. He might be a little bit fatigued. We don't know. He might be carrying an injury. We don't know how what's going on in the training ground. But look, he's a captain. I didn't think he played particularly well. I thought he was quite quiet. He didn't do anything bad, but he was quiet for what he is and what he can do. Maybe he takes him out and says, Stefan, have a breather for a game. And I don't think Stefan Johansson's a senior pro, been there, done it, played hundreds of games. I don't think he would take it too personally.
Yeah. What do you think about Andre Dessell? Because there seems to be this kind of perception, maybe among some QPR fans, that he doesn't really get quite involved enough in games, that he goes around a little bit quietly. And then obviously we saw yesterday the quality he's got to pick that pass out. I mean, I'm not sure what the Cardiff defence were doing and was parted the ways for him, but it was still a quality ball to pick it out. But what have you made of him? Do you think he's got a lot of potential to be a really good player? Like, what more does he need to do?
I think technically he's very good. He's got good technique. But I knew this before we signed him because I spoke to people, and they said everyone said the same sort of thing. Technically very good left foot, can see a pass. Might be a slight, needs to up his work rate and running and mobility on a big pitch against a stronger, quicker midfield. And that's what they said to me before we signed him. And I think that's a fair assessment. I think against a team like Cardiff, where they're sitting back and they want us to come onto them, and there's time on the ball, Andre Dessell is a very good player. So
I agree.
playing against a high tempo, like a Barnsley, when he didn't have the greatest of games, when you're playing against that sort of team, a West Brom, where and maybe a Millwall away, where it's blood and fun and the ball's coming up and back, and then that's where you might see Don Ball or Sam Field play instead.
I was just going to say that, obviously, I think he really struggled, obviously, against Barnsley and had to go off after half an hour because they were really putting him under pressure and he looked a bit out of his depth. But in terms of like yesterday, when he has a lot of time on the ball, we all know the quality he's got and he can be really effective. And I like what I've seen of him on the whole so far. He has had an up and down season. I think he's got a long way to go, but definitely I think he's shown enough to suggest that the money that they paid for him was worth it. And I think he could be a really good player. Ian, what do you think about the dilemma Mark Warburton's got in the midfield area? I mean, Don Ball obviously played a lot of games at the start of the season, and now all the players are coming back in. He's almost kind of finding himself a little bit down the pecking order, maybe a little bit harsh on him. What do you kind of see in the midfield?
I was surprised he didn't start last night, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised because not nothing against Don Ball. I just assumed that, as Kev said, if you're going to be a battle, you're going to battle against him like Cardiff. But Mark Warburton said after the game that they felt that Cardiff were quite immobile in the kind of, defensively and around midfield, so they could sort of try and pass the ball around them. So that's the reason why they played him. I mean, Stefan Johansson's best football for QPR has come alongside when he's playing alongside Sam Field, who I think is a really good player. I think he's a better player than Don Ball, personally. I think when he's fit, he will play. I was away last week, so I didn't see the Peterborough game, the Sunderland game, and the Forest games. But I mean, Luke Amos, I think, is a good player, and what when he has come on and played, he's looked bright and he's looked busy. And I thought in the Blackburn game when he came on for Don Ball, I think that's when Rangers started to up the tempo and they looked more of an attacking threat. I think with Don Ball, I think he played last year, I think against Swansea. They moved him into centre back and they were a bit short. I think you might see him used as a kind of an auxiliary defender when they need someone to fill in the centre back with the V's being injured. And again, just to close, they brought him on last night just to close the game out. He does that well, and nothing against Don Ball. He's as free transfers go, he's been an excellent signing. You compare, he's been a much more effective player than the likes of Sandro and Jordan Much and these types that are bought for massive money for a free transfer. He's been an excellent acquisition, and nothing against him at all. But there's better players than him in the squad. But that's not to say he shouldn't be in the squad. But I think he's a very useful player just to fill in, just to close games out or that kind of thing. I do think Warburton was a bit spooked after the West Brom game, where he did try and he played Barbe as a wing back and tried to go toe to toe with West Brom physically, and it kind of backfired. So I do think that's in the back of his mind, and I think being the manager he is, he always try and go on the front foot where he has to. So it'll be interesting to see what he does. But I do expect once Field is fit, I do expect him to be kind of the first choice centre midfielder alongside Johansson.
Yeah, whatever happened to Jordan Much, eh? There's a name I've not heard for a while. I think you mentioned Luke Amos there. I think with him, it's probably a fitness thing, isn't it? At the moment, they're just trying to build him back slowly after the amount of game time he missed. But he's a player I'd definitely like to see more of in a starting role. I think he and Johansson could work really well together. Like you say, he really puts the pressure on, closes people down.
I think you really missed a trick not playing him against Fulham. I would have started Amos in midfield against Fulham. Fulham are very mobile in that middle, and I think on that day they got absolutely battered by Seri and Reed in the middle of the park. So yeah. Back again to what Kev says about horses with courses, that's games against the better sides, the Bournemouths, the Fulhams. I think I'd play Amos maybe in those games.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think he definitely needs to get more of a shot if he's ready. That is, obviously the manager knows where he's at with in terms of his getting back to fitness. So he's definitely a player I'd like to see a bit more of. Another area of the pitch that I suppose has kind of proved problematic for QPR this year is that left-hand side because of injuries. And story out today on West London Sport that Lee Wallace maybe won't be back for the Blackpool game as Mark Warburton had originally hoped he would be. And obviously Sam McCullough really struggling with injuries, got injured against Forest again. I think that's second or third time he's got an injury this season. Ian, you were obviously at the game yesterday. He played Odebajo on the left-hand side. What do you make of him there? Do you think that is a solution? And obviously that left-hand side problem, it really has helped QPR back a little bit this season, hasn't it, with the injuries they've had there?
Yeah, he was great last night. I think he had probably his best game I've seen from him. He was strong in the tackle. He got forward. I mean, he made a really crucial right at the end when they were under pressure. He brought the ball out of the fence and made like a 70-yard run down the line just to, release the pressure valve, and put in a couple of good crosses. And I think taking him out the sides for a couple of games was a good thing. He's come back in. He looks refreshed. He looks, good to go. And I think he's not a bad option to have as a left back. He's far better. I mean, to be the third choice left wing back, if you like, I think they're in a decent spot with him there. And then you don't want to rushing players like Wallace back. So the fact they've got him there just to fill in as a stopgap, I think they're in a reasonable spot at the moment. And Adoma's done very well as a right wing back. He's done better than I thought he would actually. I thought he might be a bit of a defensive liability, and I think I didn't see the Forest game on Friday, but last night they got behind him early in the game, and I thought, oh no, he could be under a bit of trouble here, but he was okay. He was good.
Yeah, because when they were first without McCallum or Wallace, Mark Warburton's first instinct was to obviously use Barbet in that position against West Brom, and it didn't especially work too well. Wasn't a complete disaster, but didn't work that well. Kev, do you think that QPR can get by with Odebajo at left wing back while these injury problems carry on? Or do you think perhaps in January, if these injury problems are going to persist, McCallum really looks like he's struggling to stay on the pitch and get fit at the moment? Is that something they need to look at? Are you kind of comfortable with having Wallace and McCallum, who maybe might miss games, and then Odebajo as that sort of first backup in that position?
I thought he played really well last night. I think that's quite a good backup. Ian said he'd come out for the game, and he's come back refreshed. And you've seen that, like Ian said, with that, release the pressure where he ran 70 yards, and I think he got a free kick. Just takes the pressure off, and that was really well played. I think I thought he had a really good game. Wallace, even if he was maybe fit for Saturday, I don't know how long he's been training, but it's international weekend. I would say after what Odebajo played on last night, I'd play him. I say, Wallace, you've got 2 weeks now, or 3, whatever, to get yourself 100%, because he keeps picking up these injuries, and McCallum keeps picking up these hamstring injuries. And I've had hamstring injuries before. And there's obviously some sort of weakness there.
Yeah.
That to get to the bottom of it, because he's a fit lad, McCallum. He can get about the pitch, he can run up and down, but his hamstring or his body somewhere is letting him down. Well, his hamstring is letting him down somewhere. So they need to get to the bottom of that. Sometimes it's tricky because it can take a while. Some physios go one way and then that don't work, and then they'll send you to like a specialist. And I've been there, and it's difficult where you're fit and you think you're fit and you want to run and you can't, and you've got a slight pull, and it just lets you down, and you're absolutely gutted, and you just got to stay off the pitch, and you're not playing. So would I look? Depends. In January, Wallace is obviously getting on a little bit, but when he plays, he's done really well in that left wing back, which I didn't think he was. I thought he was just a left back, but he's done really well on that side when he's played. But he is picking up injuries, and it would be a slight concern for them. But Odebajo last night filled in really well. And Albert, I agree with Ian. I didn't think, because he really is an out-and-out right winger. He's played wing back, and he's doing a fine job at the moment.
I suppose the only concern is obviously Odebajo's had his injury problems as well, hasn't he? So if he gets it knocked, then you're really panicking, I think, as well. It depends what the other two are doing, but like I said, they have really struggled with injury problems so far. I think Lee Wallace coming back will be a huge bonus, actually. It's probably a time, if I'd have said that, QPR fans would have laughed at me, but he's turned his kind of QPR career around big time, and looks really well suited to that wing back position. It'll just be interesting to see how much he can come back and contribute, because obviously he's not the youngest of players, and an injury like this can potentially have, I guess, more of an impact than it would on a younger player when you come back. So hopefully he can come back and play like he was before the injury. I just want to move on to some off the pitch stuff that's been going on in terms of the stadium. There's been some updates on that pretty recently. There's been a few statements come out. Obviously QPR, just got it here, came out first of all and basically said regarding the Linford Christie Stadium, that they haven't had the cooperation they wanted from Hammersmith and Fulham Council, and they're potentially looking at other sites now for a new stadium. The council then came back with another statement and said that QPR hadn't been in touch with the council for 2 years. Their last meeting, they said they asked them why they were struggling to find 20 million for the Warren Farm training ground. They told QPR they cannot gift hundreds of millions of pounds worth of public land to QPR's multi-millionaire overseas owners, and that they have suggested if QPR are serious about any site in the borough which they need financial help with, they should look into a new fan-based ownership scheme. So it's all getting a little bit nasty. It's all a little bit messy. Kev, you've obviously grown up in the area. You've supported QPR. You played for QPR for a long time. You played at the current stadium, Loftus Road, for a long time. I mean, what is your take on all of this situation? What do you think about it?
Well, one, I don't think they should be going back and forth in the media.
Yeah,
that's my one. I was like, what? I'm reading it and I'm just thinking, this should be just done privately. That's my number one. That should be done privately, especially the last two. Was just like, I was reading it. It's like, yeah, I thought that was just, now you're just like tit for tat and who's going to have one-upmanship or whatever. Two, do I really want us to leave Loftus Road deep down? I'm not too sure. I love the place. I love going down there still. Three, I think we've got a chairman now Ruben, but Ruben's sort of, I like Ruben because he's behind the scenes, but he's the main shareholder. He's the main man, but he doesn't get involved in the press that much. Where Tony Fernandez was more, he was more, and I like Tony as well in the way, but he was more like into the fame. Oh, look, I'm with him, I'm with them, and more famous people. Look at my signings. And remember the one I played PlayStation with was signing, and we signed him. And you're like, years ago, you're just like, this ain't the way to run it. With Ruben, I think you got a sensible chairman now. Not like Tony Fernandez, but you got a real sensible, behind the scenes chairman who wants to do the right things, who wants to make the club better, who wants to, like, with the training ground and stuff like that. So I think you're a good chairman. I can't see, after what I've heard from those statements, how the club and the borough can get back on track. This is a bit of a strange one. I just felt like the to and fro, it hasn't helped QPR, especially because at the end of the day, QPR want to stay. We want to stay in that borough. We want to stay in W12, don't we? Let's be fair. And it's important for QPR fans and for me because we're the only club with a W in our postcode. And that means a lot to the QPR fans when they sing West London as ours. And I don't want to have like a Southwest or an NW. I want W12 because that's QPR. So they need to patch it up. The sooner the better.
Yeah, I mean, the relationship is clearly very fractured at the moment. I did miss at the start of the same statement, Hammersmith and Fulham said that they're huge supporters of QPR and they're willing to bend over backwards to help them, as they've done with Fulham and Chelsea. But that pretty much totally contradicts what Ruben had said in his comments, that they basically hadn't been helping them out and they'd found them difficult to deal with in regards to this. Ian, what are your thoughts on this? You've obviously been a QPR fan for many years now, and there's, I think, a lot of QPR fans out there, as kind of Kev alluded to, that maybe aren't massively in on the move, that maybe do want to stay, that don't. But then, you've got the club saying that the stadium now isn't fit for purpose. So what are your thoughts on the idea of moving to a new stadium?
Well, I think the term fit for purpose is not true. It is fit for purpose. Griffin Park wasn't fit for purpose. Brentford needed to move to a new ground.
Yeah.
Where Loftus Road struggles is, I've got friends that have got season tickets in Ellerslie Road, and that just the area behind the stand, trying to get a drink, trying to get to the toilet at half time. It's really tight. It's just the comfort level is what it does lack. But I mean, it's certainly for purpose to be a Championship / Premier League ground. I don't think, as Kev said, neither side has really come out well in this sort of spat. I know that the club have tried to speak to the council, but they've had to go through almost like a third party to speak to the council, and the third party come back and say the council don't want to speak to you.
Right.
And they're sort of going, well, You know, and I think it's a bit rich of the council to come out and stop, you know, having a go at foreign owners when you're bending over for Chelsea and Fulham to build, you know, hotels and new stands in at their stadiums. So, you know, neither side has come out well. At the same time, you can't expect the council just to turn around and give QPR land without, you know, paying for it. So you've got that as well. But I mean, you know, both parties need to come together and, as Kev said, do it behind closed doors. And, you know, let's get to some sort of situation where, even if it means, you know, improving, you know, Loftus Road, because the reality is, you know, they're not going to move in the next decade. You know, just little things that need to be there, like painting the back of the school end and just tidy it up, just make it look a bit smarter.
Sort the taps out as well.
Yeah, just things like that, just little things that can be done. But you know, QPR, you know, it's W12. That's where they should be, and that's the land is there to build it at Linford Christie. So, but the revenue from match days, what it brings to the area, you know, that's got to be a factor as well. There's lots of businesses that you speak to local shop owners and businesses around the ground that how much they struggled when there was no fans coming in and the money they lost. You know, there's a revenue to the area, and the council shouldn't, you know, overlook that as well. But I mean,
I think what the club is talking about is revenue when there's no matches.
Mm.
You know, because of the parking situation at Loftus Road, isn't it? I mean, you can't do anything. Say you wanted to, you had a bigger stadium and you had a big restaurant or hotel built onto it. There's money going into the club 24/7. Where at QPR, it's just really earning on match days. And how many match days do you have? Maybe 20 maximum. Well, depends how well you do in the cup, but 25, 26, 27 games a season. So I understand why they want to move, and eventually you're going to have to progress the club. But like we've said, I don't think sort of having pot shots in the media is the way to go about it.
Absolutely, and I'm sure this isn't the last we've had on it. I'm sure there'll be plenty to follow over the coming months and years as well. Just finally, before we come on to Saturday's game and give our thoughts on that, we'll come to you on this one, Kev, because it's a striker-related issue. Charlie Kelman coming back from Gillingham, his loan spell obviously hasn't worked out there, didn't get the playing time he wanted, and now he's back at QPR, and I suppose they'll have a look at in January what they're going to do there and potentially loan him out again. But it's kind of disappointing because, I mean, Ian, you've spoke on here before about kind of being quite happy with the signs you've seen from him, and he could be quite a good player, and to kind of go out on loan for your first spell from QPR and it not really work out, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, have you had any like situations like that before where you've kind of gone out and maybe it's not worked out, and how do you deal with that?
Well, they always say like when you take players on loan from like say we take players on loan from the Premiership, or the Premiership players go on loan, they always say, oh, the first loan is like they struggle. So Charlie Kelman struggle. But I think it was, when I think about it, behind the scenes where you've got a manager like Steve Evans and Charlie Kelman, the way he plays football, Charlie Kelman's suited to the way QPR plays football, ball into feet and, you know, movement, where Steve Evans is a manager, he's direct, he wants the ball played up to the big man and flick-ons. And I'm reading between the lines, and I've read what Steve Evans has said about him not getting on the end of flick-ons. That's not really Charlie Kelman's game. So looking back at it, it's not a great move for him as in style of play. I don't know what's happened. Maybe there was a falling out at Gillingham, or maybe it's just purely down, I'm not playing any games, I need to leave. So, and I might as well be at QPR than sitting in the stand at Gillingham. I might as well, you know, try and get a game at QPR. But he needs to either get his head down and try and force his way into the QPR squad, or needs to go and find another loan in League One with a team that suits his style of play.
I think a loan would be good. I mean, he's going to find it tough, isn't he? You've got Austin, Dykes and Gray at the club already. You've got Macaulay Bonner on loan at Ipswich, banging in the goals as well. And then, you know,
well, I can't see Macaulay Bonner coming back, to be honest.
No.
Well, he's sort of from Ipswich. He's playing every week. He's scoring goals. Why would he come back to QPR and sit on the bench.
It depends next season. Obviously, Andre Gray won't be there, will he? I suppose there's maybe an opportunity there, but I know what you mean. He's not. It depends how much a chance Mike Warburton might love what he's seen from him at Ipswich. I mean, he scored a lot of goals, but yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? For a player to do so badly one season and then to obviously he's playing in the lower division, which I get, but I don't think anyone expected him to do it. Like, he's almost got as many goals as games. Like, he's been unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, you're playing every week, and the manager's like you're my centre forward. You're playing every week. The confidence that gives you, you get into that rhythm, you start scoring goals. And Ipswich are probably the best team in that division. They're creating loads of chances. It's getting goals. I don't know. I mean, I think I wouldn't be surprised if they get promoted. They will make a bid for him.
Yeah. All right. We'll come on to Saturday then. Normally, I'd let you two take the one, but I thought the preview stuff. I thought I'd have my little say, as I am a Blackpool fan. I'm not sure if everyone knows watching, but
I don't know anything about Blackpool.
That's all right then. I do. So
it's got a big wheel or something and a tail.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Quite nice, apparently. Yeah. Well, obviously we came out from League One last season, and I think a lot of fans expected to be in a bit of a relegation fight, and it looked that way at the start of the year. You know, we didn't win for I think 5 or 6 games, but since then, since the first international break, we've come back really well. Made some good signings towards the end of the transfer window, which have helped out a lot. We've got our main striker from last season, Jerry Yates, scoring goals again now and playing well. Had a bit of a difficult result yesterday. We lost 1-0 to Stoke, which was, I mean, Ian, you said the Cardiff QPR game weren't great, but I can guarantee you this was a worse game. It was brutal. I mean, Stoke.
I've never heard you speak so excitingly about a team. West London sport, not Blackpool sport.
Sorry. All right, how we got? Another 10 minutes, and then I'll be done. I promise. No, but we're in good form before we lost the game yesterday, which was a terrible game against the side in Stoke that seemed intent on trying to take out as many of our players as they can. So I think it's set up quite nicely. We're a couple of points behind QPR in the table. What are you thinking about this one, Kev? Are you fancying a win for QPR?
Well, I did, but until I've just heard you, and I'm thinking we'll lose 5-0.
Maybe I've overdone it. Maybe I've overdone it a bit, but
I think you've overdone. I'm going to go 1-1 now. I was going to go 2-1, but 1-1. Now you've got this centre forward playing.
Yeah, well, he lost his place in the team.
Haaland. Is that the centre forward?
Haaland. Not quite. He'll be there eventually. Jerry.
Okay, 1-1 because it's a tough game. Wednesday, I know you played last night as well, Blackpool. Wednesday, it's a long way to go. QPR are pretty good away from home at the moment because they can control possession and take the sting out of the game because they've got some good footballers in there. And we've always got goals. We keep it tight at the back. We've always got goals. We'll always score, I feel. So I'm going to go 1-1.
Yeah, what do you think about this one then, Ian? You seen much of Blackpool this year?
I haven't, to be honest, because unlike QPR, they don't seem to be on Sky very much.
No, this will be the first time, I believe. I don't think the red button, not properly.
I mean, there's an old QPR link there as well with Josh Bowler, who regretting making that move to Everton to sit in their under 23 team for 2 years. But he's got a couple of goals there, hasn't he, this season?
Yeah, he's been good. He's sort of been in and out a little bit, coming off the bench and stuff. But I mean, you probably saw it at QPR. I mean, on the ball, like dribbling, he's incredible. Really tough to get the ball off when he gets going. If he doesn't start, it'll be a great impact sub to come off the bench as well with his dribbling ability. So yeah, he's done well.
Yeah, so it'll be
Stanley Matthews you just described there, Dan.
Who? Messi.
Stanley Matthews.
But QPR got quite a good record at Blackpool in my memory as well. We always seem to get a result up there, or they seem to get results up there. But fair play to Blackpool. They've come up. They're not. You look at Hull, who walked away with the division last year. You know, they haven't really changed, but they've got a kind of forward-thinking manager, and they're trying to do things the right way. And it's good to see them back. They've had a kind of horrendous sort of decade. They've got that.
Yeah, you don't need to remind me of that. So I've been there. I've been to League. I've been to Crawley away. I know what it's like. So
yeah, it's good to see him back. I mean, it's tough to back up from a game like that, and it depends who's fit as well. Andre Gray went off last night with an injury. I'm not sure whether he'll play. I know Dykes is carrying an ankle injury, whether he'll pull up, and it's I reckon I think it'll be a draw as well. Maybe 2-2.
2-2. Yeah, we haven't scored loads of goals this year, but I'd definitely take a 2-2. Do you know what? despite everything I've said and Kev laughing at me for how much I've praised Blackpool, I actually think QPR might win this one. I think we've played a lot of games recently, as both sides have, but I fancy QPR. I think going forward, I think if they can get at us, and I suppose the good or bad news, whichever way you look at it, was Richard Keogh went off injured yesterday, so it looks like he might not play against the supporters that absolutely love him for that playoff final. So I might go 2-1 QPR, and unfortunately, it pains me to say it, but I fancy a QPR a win in this one. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like the video and subscribe if you haven't done yet to the channel, and we'll be back soon.